I wish I could say I didn't mean it. I wish I could say it slipped out in a moment of anger, that I was drunk, that I didn't know what the words would do once they left my mouth. The truth is uglier. I knew exactly what I was doing when I called him dead in bed, and I did it because I wanted to feel powerful. It worked for about 10 minutes. Then the bill came due, and I've been paying ever since. When I met Caleb, I thought I'd finally found a man who made the world quiet in a good way. He was steady. Shows up when he says he will, remembers your coffee order, fixes the wobbly chair without being asked. We didn't burn hot. We warmed slow. Our first kiss didn't feel like fireworks, it felt like opening a door to a room that already had my name on it. He was thoughtful in the smallest ways, and I told everyone how lucky I was. And I was, until I decided steady meant boring. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow itch. My last boyfriend, Matt, was the kind of charming that leaves stains. Loud laughs, big gestures, zero follow-through. The highs with him were dizzy, and the lows were endless. When I moved in with Caleb, it felt like stepping off a roller coaster onto solid ground. For a while, the ground felt amazing. Then my old habits came back. I started looking for drama like a person who's scared of silence. I wanted big scenes, grand declarations, confessions at 2 a.m. Instead, I had a man who kissed my forehead and said, "Sleep, babe. Tomorrow we'll talk," and meant it. Caleb was gentle in intimacy. He checked in. He asked what I liked. He apologized if a touch didn't land right and tried again. He didn't perform, he paid attention. I should have treated that like gold. Instead, I compared him to men who pretended they were movie stars for 10 minutes and then rolled over. The worst part is that when he asked for what he needed. Slower mornings, less pressure to be amazing, more honesty. I made jokes. I told him he was overthinking. I laughed off his requests and told myself I was keeping it light. The first rail crack happened at a friend's rooftop birthday. Someone told a crude story about their hookup, and the whole group started tossing around jokes. I could have kept my mouth shut. Instead, I said, "Well, at least your guy wasn't dead in bed." It was a throwaway line to get a laugh. It got one. People cackled. Someone spit their drink. I felt that cheap rush that lives at the bottom of a bad joke. I didn't look at Caleb right away. When I finally did, he was smiling the way polite people do when a stranger bumps them and says my bad without meaning it. He didn't call me out that night. He didn't start a fight in the Uber. He didn't sulk or make snide comments. He held my hand like always, opened the door for me like always, and kissed my cheek when we got home. I told myself I'd gotten away with it. That's the thing about being cruel. You can convince yourself the quiet means you weren't. 2 days later, I was in the kitchen scrolling through my phone when he came in holding a printout. It was a screenshot of the group chat where I'd repeated the joke, brighter and meaner, because the first laugh wasn't enough for me. I had written "love him to death" but also, "dead in bed LOL" and added a skull emoji like I was in middle school. Someone had forwarded it to him. He set the paper on the counter, lined up with the edge like he always did with everything, and said, "I'm not angry. I'm done." I laughed because I thought that would stop it from being real. "Caleb, come on. It was a joke." He nodded. "It was a joke you told twice. In public and then in private. You turned me into a punchline in places I can't defend myself." His voice wasn't sharp. It was careful, like he was carrying something heavy that could break. "If I ever spoke about you like that, even once, you would be gone in an hour. You know it. I know it. I tried every trick. I blamed stress. I blamed the wine. I blamed my past for making me edgy about intimacy. I even tried to spin it like I was asking for more passion, as if there's a noble way to hang a man out to dry." He listened. He nodded like he understood the words I was saying and then said the only sentence that mattered. "I'm not staying with someone who uses my body to win a laugh." He packed a bag while I followed him from room to room saying anything I could think of to slow him down. He took clothes, a few books, his bike tools, and a mug he loved with a chip on the lip. He left the TV, the couch he had bought, and the plants he used to talk to when he watered them. At the door he said, "I don't plan to punish you online or with our friends. I'm going to tell people the truth. That we're not a good fit. Please don't make me regret giving you that much." I cried like the movies taught me to, on the floor with my head in my hands, hoping my pain would count for something. It didn't. He left anyway. The apartment felt hollow in the way spaces do when the person who made them a home is gone. At first, I told myself he was being dramatic. He just needed space. He'd miss me and come back. I sent a long apology. He replied, "I forgive you, but I'm not returning." That was it. No bargaining, no door cracked open. Final. Clean. I called his sister because I knew she liked me. She said, "He's serious, Jess," and that was the last time I heard from her. Then came the second bill, people's faces when the group chat and the rooftop story made their way around. A couple of my friends told me quietly, "That was rough, in the tone you use for weather, not for a person." One friend said, "If my boyfriend said that about me, I'd change my locks," and I wanted to be angrier at her than at myself. The worst part was the silence from men I thought were my friends. They weren't cruel. They just stepped back in that quiet way people do when you reveal yourself and they don't want to be next. I tried to fix my image. I posted a soft apology on Instagram without saying what I did. Sometimes we hurt people we love and doing the work and be kind with a sunset photo. No one took the bait. A mutual friend messaged me, apologized to him, not the internet. I had already. He had already said no. A month later, I saw a photo of him at a community dance class, hair damp at the edges, laughing with a group of strangers in a mirror-lined studio. I stared at his face looking loose and bright and realized I'd only ever seen him dance at weddings when I pulled him into a crowd. Another photo popped up a week after that. Him at a rock climbing gym, chalk on his fingers, a goofy grin I didn't know. I learned his life through other people's lenses, and he looked like a person unfolding instead of a person trying to prove something. I kept telling myself he was just coping. That I could write a grand apology and he'd remember our good parts. So I wrote one. 3 pages long. I told him I was ashamed. I told him I knew how intimacy had been hard last winter when he switched medications and his body changed, that I had used that against him, that I had been a coward. I told him I was seeing a therapist. I didn't ask to get back together. I asked to talk. He replied the next day. "Thank you for saying it. I'm glad you're in therapy. I wish you well." There were no extra words to squeeze hope out of. He hadn't been waiting for me to get it. He had moved on without needing my understanding first. I ran into him at a farmer's market at the start of summer. He was with a woman I didn't know. Tall, kind face, curls pulled back with a scarf. He introduced us with the same grace he gives to everyone. "Jess, this is Lena." We met at the dance studio. She smiled and asked if I wanted the last of the berries in the container they were filling, like this was any other Saturday with people who didn't share a history. The world did not collapse. I didn't faint. We all stood in the sun and made small talk about peaches like grown-ups. I hated how normal it was. A week later, a friend told me they'd seen them out and said the two of them looked easy together. "They just fit," she said, like she was describing a shelf built right. I checked Lena's profile because I'm human and I wanted to find something to dislike. There wasn't much there. Some dance videos where her joy looked like air. A photo of a book with a caption about patience. A short clip of her dog sleeping on Caleb's feet while he worked on a bike chain. No poses for the sake of posing. No digs. Just a life. The hook in my brain kept trying to grab excuses. Maybe he was finally performing passion because someone new made him try. Maybe he wanted to prove a point. Then I saw a comment under one of his climbing photos from a guy named Alex, "Proud of you for working with your doc and not giving up." There it was. The piece I refused to learn when it mattered. Caleb had told me, 5 times at least, that a new med was messing with his drive. He had told me he was working on it. He had asked for grace. I had turned a medical adjustment into a label and hung it around his neck. He didn't get better because a new woman walked in. He got better because he did the work and chose someone who wouldn't mock him for needing it. I kept wanting a big cinematic moment where I could say my apology in person and be so brave about my shame that people would clap. That's not how any of this works. I saw him again at a friend's backyard barbecue. He was helping the host build a quick fix for a broken bench with a drill and a smile, while I stood near the table with the chips trying to talk about a TV show like that would make me interesting. When he walked past me to grab a lemonade, I said, "I really am sorry." He nodded without stopping. "I know," he said. "I believe you." He didn't add anything else because there wasn't anything else to add. The universe did not punish me with lightning. It gave me something worse, time to sit with what I'd done without being able to spin it. I started therapy for real, not for a caption. The first session, I tried to explain why I made the joke. My therapist said, "You used cruelty to control attention. That's a choice, not a personality type." We talked about how I learned to lead with shame in my family, how we made pain into humor and called it love. We talked about how I kept calling Caleb steady like it was a flaw. We talked about being gentle without being boring, about asking for what I want without making someone else small. I stopped posting period for a while because I didn't trust myself to speak like a person instead of a headline. I deleted the story highlight where I had our cute couple moments saved. It felt like stealing to keep them up once he wasn't mine. I started reading at night instead of doom scrolling. I made food that didn't need to be photographed and called my mom to ask about her day without turning the conversation to me. It was small and quiet and not worth a single like. It made me feel less like a brand and more like a person. Months passed. I learned things I didn't think I'd get to learn. How to listen without planning my next line. How to say that hurt me without using a joke for cover. How to hold my own hand when I want attention I haven't earned. I am not a saint. I still want to win rooms I should leave. I still reach for the sharp quip when I'm scared. But sometimes I catch myself before I say it. Sometimes I choose the sentence that costs me the laugh and buys me a little more self-respect. I saw Caleb and Lena one more time this fall, at a street fair near our old neighborhood. A band was playing. People were dancing badly on purpose, and others were good enough to make the rest of us cheer. He and Lena were in the middle of the crowd, moving in a way that looked like they were listening to the same thing the same way. She whispered something and he threw his head back and laughed, not the polite one. His real one, the warm, surprised sound he used to save for me. It hit me and it didn't. I was sad and also, not. Not for him, anyway. If you're waiting for a twist where he comes back, there isn't one. He didn't leave to make me chase him. He left because I told the world he wasn't enough and then expected him to prove me wrong by staying. He proved me wrong by leaving. He wasn't dead in bed. He was alive in a relationship that required respect to breathe, and I had been smothering it with jokes. Sometimes at night, when the apartment is too quiet, I think about the difference between gentleness and dullness, and how thin that line can look if you're addicted to noise. I think about how I mistook unperformed passion for a lack of it. I think about how easy it is to make someone small with one sentence and how long it can take to build them back up even in your own mind. Then I make tea, answer nobody's messages, and go to bed without writing a caption about growth. It is boring. It is steady. It is the work. He smiled, packed a bag, and built a life without me. That's the whole story. The part one have left is making sure I never turn another person into a punchline just to hear the sound of my own laugh. If that sounds small, good. Small is where I should have started.